I'm going to continue in the book of Acts this morning, reading an episode. It ends up being an entire chapter, or almost an entire chapter, so if you will bear with me. We read this story together. It's Acts chapter 12. I'm going to read the first 24 verses. It was about this time that King Herod arrested some who belonged to the church, intending to persecute them. He had James, the brother of John, put to death with the sword. When he saw that this pleased the Jews, he proceeded to seize Peter also. Now this happened during the Feast of Unleavened Bread. After arresting him, he put him in prison, handing him over to be guarded by 4 squads of 4 soldiers each. Herod intended to bring him out for public trial after the Passover. So Peter was kept in prison, but the church was earnestly praying to God for him. The night before Herod was to bring him to trial, Peter was sleeping between 2 soldiers, bound with 2 chains, and sentries stood guard at the entrance. Suddenly an angel of the Lord appeared, and a light shone in the cell. He struck Peter on the side and woke him up. "Quick, get up," he said, and the chains fell off Peter's wrists. Then the angel said to him, "Put on your clothes and sandals," and Peter did so. "Wrap your cloak around you and follow me," the angel told him. Peter followed him out of the prison, but he had no idea that what the angel was doing was really happening. He thought he was seeing a vision. They passed the first and second guards and came to the iron gate leading to the city. It opened for them by itself, and they went through it. And when they had walked the length of one street, suddenly the angel left him. Then Peter came to himself and said, "Now I know, without a doubt, that the Lord sent his angel and rescued me from Herod's clutches and from everything the Jewish people were anticipating." When this had dawned on him, he went to the house of Mary, the mother of John, also called Mark, where many people had gathered and were praying. Peter knocked at the outer entrance, and a servant girl named Rhoda came to answer the door. When she recognized Peter's voice, she was so overjoyed, she ran back without opening it and exclaimed, "Peter's at the door." "You're out of your mind," they told her. When she kept insisting that it was so, they said, "It must be his angel." But Peter kept on knocking. And when they opened the door and saw him, they were astonished. Peter motioned with his hand for them to be quiet and described how the Lord had brought him out of prison. "Tell James and the brothers about this," he said, and then he left for another place. In the morning there was no small commotion among the soldiers as to what had become of Peter. After Herod had a thorough search made for him and did not find him, he cross-examined the guards and ordered that they be executed. Then Herod went from Judea to Caesarea and stayed there for a while. He had been quarreling with the people of Tyre and Sidon. They now joined together and sought an audience with him. Having secured the support of Blastus, a trusted personal servant of the king, they asked for peace because they depended on the king's country for their food supply. On the appointed day, Herod, wearing his royal robes, sat on his throne and delivered a public address to the people. They shouted, "This is the voice of a God, not of a man." Immediately, because Herod did not give praise to God, an angel of the Lord struck him down, and he was eaten by worms and died. But the word of God continued to increase and spread. This is the word of God for the people of God.
Thanks be to God.
Reverend John Paton was one of many pioneer missionaries in the late mid 19th century to the New Hebrides Islands, islands full of cannibals. And he is quoted as telling a story about the protective care of angels. It reads this way: hostile natives surrounded his mission headquarters one night, intent on burning the Patons out and killing them. Paton and his wife prayed all during that terror-filled night that God would deliver them. When daylight came, they were amazed to see that unaccountably the attackers had left. They thanked God for delivering them. A year later, the chief of the tribe was converted to Jesus Christ. And Mr. Paton, remembering what had happened, asked the chief what had kept his men from burning down the house and killing them all that night. The chief replied in somewhat of a surprise, "Who are all those men that you had in there with you?" The missionary answered, "There were no men there, just my wife and I." The chief argued that they had seen many men standing guard, hundreds of big men in shining garments with drawn swords in their hands. They seemed to circle the mission station so that the natives were afraid to attack. Only then did Mr. Patton realize that God had sent his angels to protect them. The chief agreed. That story written in Billy Graham's 1975, I think, published book called Angels, God's Secret Agents. Been a number of upgrades of that, and there's another more stories in it. But do you believe in angels? Do you believe you have a guardian angel? Are they like in our text, just a prayer away whenever you need them? If you make the Most High your dwelling, even the Lord who is my refuge, then no harm will befall you, no disaster will come near your tent, for he will command his angels concerning you to guard you in all your ways. Then they will lift you up in their hands so that you will not strike your foot against a stone. Psalm 91. Angels got real popular in the late 70s and early 80s, and well, really through the 80s. They're kind of warm fuzzy for us, aren't they? I mean, you can remember Clarence? Yeah. The angel trying to earn his wings. I mean, what I want us to understand, that this text is a lot more about prayer than it is about angels. Of course it's about angels. But I think it's more importantly about prayer. And as funny as all this thing, I mean, isn't it great? The church is praying boldly for something miraculous to happen, and then it does, and they can't believe it. I mean, that's about as human as it gets. To the point of ignoring the person who was rescued miraculously. But there is from this story several things that I think we can take about prayer as well as angels that are very important. And the first one is this: if God's gift to us is prayer, do you think of that? Do you understand that as a gift? You should. Can you imagine the Lord of heaven and earth, the Lord who created everything from the spoken word? That Lord said, anytime you wish to speak to me, I'm listening. He didn't get that from your mama. Do you understand that? My mama told me way too often, just dry up and blow away. After I've been pestering her for half an hour or something that, It's the first thing. Prayer is a gift that God has given us. That's what it is first and foremost. And our response in return, our gift to Him in return, if that is true, if prayer is a gift, and I believe it is, then our response in return is nothing less than expectation. Expectation is our part. It's just a part of who we believe God is. It's a confident trust that prayer matters. It matters in so many ways. It makes a difference to the world. It makes a difference in what happens. It makes a difference in the one who prays. And that confident trust, trust doesn't exist in our world anymore, does it? We're left with the cultural version of trust that began, I guess, with President Reagan and Gorbachev. Remember in the 80s when they were negotiating various arms agreements, and Reagan was fond of quoting an ancient Russian proverb, which translates trust but verify. And now we live in a world that thinks that's trust. I'll trust you as long as you prove it to me. Which is not the kind of expectation that we give to God as a result of His gift of prayer to us. We just do the trust part. And sometimes we do take that part in our own hands, don't we? And there's a great biblical warrant for that. Think of Abraham. Abraham, age 75. Abraham, I know you have no children, but you're not only going to have a child, you're going to have tons of descendants, and they're going to be blessed. Okay. Abraham accepted that. And he waited. And he waited 80 years. And he waited. And he waited 85 years. And he waited. And he waited 90 years. And he waited. And he said, okay, if I'm going to have a son, I got to get involved here. So, wait a second. Sarah's way too old, but I have this slave girl. Let's have a child with her. That'll work. And into the world comes No, not Isaac. Ishmael. And God's promise comes a few years later to fruition. And ever since that time, Isaac and Ishmael and their descendants have been at each other's throats. Thank you, Abraham. Because after all, sometimes you can't trust God. You just have to take matters into your own hands. Right? That's the way we look. That's why I chose this wonderful text from the three young men in the fiery furnace. Did you hear what they said? This is trust. Okay? The God we serve is able to save us, and He will rescue us from your hand, O King. But there's that eraser in the English language, okay? What I just said no longer exists. It's no longer true because I put the but after it. But even if He does not, we want you to know, O King, we're not going to serve your gods or worship that image of gold that you've set up. Now that is trust. That is the gift of expectation we give back to God. Not, it doesn't look like it's going to happen. I better get involved here. Do this on my own. Not trust but verify. Not trust but as long as you do what I want you to do, I'll continue to trust you. It's trust in the person. It's trust in the God who gives us the gift of prayer. It's trust no matter what. We will be with you, Lord, whether you rescue us or not, although we know you're perfectly capable. Now that, oh my, that's trust. Expectation means it's not up to you. It's not how you prayed. It's not how well you prayed. It's not how long you prayed. It's not how often you prayed. It means, oh gosh, and it's certainly not based on how worthy you are, and therefore your prayers. It means that you can be at peace because you have prayed. You have made your requests known to God. And nor do we dare overlay the other cultural expectation in our defining an answer to prayer. Do you understand what that's now, immediately?